Everyone has a good story to tell, and you know it is a good story when the person leans in and says, "See, what had happened was," and then tells the story.
This podcast provides those opportunities to tell those types of stories in education. The stories will be from the good, the bad, and everything in between. We wanted to do this podcast to showcase stories in education and to give flowers to educators who deserve recognition for their excellence.
Our guests will feature parents, students, teachers, administrators, and just about anyone who is involved in education. These stories will inspire you, challenge you, and help you to reflect on your practice of education, whether it be from the inside of the classroom or outside.
If you have a good story to tell, we'd love to hear it. Email us at contact@andredoughty.org. We'd love to have you or your story on a future episode. See What Had Happened starts now.
Welcome to See What Had Happened, where we hear the stories from the good, the bad, and everything in between. We are your co-hosts, Danielle and Andre Daughty. We are so glad that you are watching and listening and tuning in with us today. If you've been a part of the family since season 1, man, shout out to you. We really, truly appreciate all of the things that you've been doing as far as the sharing and the connecting and the commenting and the subscribing. We appreciate you. If this is your very first time with us today, what's up, homies? We're on all podcasting sites and networks. And so wherever you find your podcast, that's where we are. Whether it be Apple, whether it be Spotify, Pandora, any of those places, we got you. We're right there. If you want to watch this live, then you can check it out on YouTube as well. Okay, well, today is just us, and we're going to talk about what had happened. Today we are going to feature...
I thought about a song.
Go ahead.
Just me and you. Just two. Oh, hey, man, we got to stop right there. We got to pay for it.
Right.
Okay.
We get flagged, get monetized.
Okay.
Today is just us two. We're going to share a story from the good, the bad, and everything in between. And today's featured person will be none other than the queen, the beautiful woman right here sitting next to me.
She is I, and I am she.
Okay, so set this story up for us, baby.
Okay, today I'm going to take you back to the exact date. March 13th. 2020. What is that date, you may ask? It is the date that will forever live in infamy. We call this the day that COVID hit. Dun, dun, dun.
And I remember the day before that so vividly.
Oh.
Thunder game. The Utah Jazz come to town to play our Oklahoma City Thunder. My big brother is at the game, and so many of our friends are at the game. And at our house, we normally thumbed her up at that time.
We do what?
We thumbed her up. We thumbed her up, yo. Thumbed her. We normally thunder up at that time. And I remember sitting down watching the game, had my food ready. And they all shook hands right before the warm-up. They did the Star Spangled Banner. They did all of the good stuff. And here we go. We're ready to go, ready to rock it, ready to roll it. Here we go. And then all of a sudden, some dude come running out of the locker room, and no one tackled him. And we was like, okay, who is this? I didn't know at the time who that was, but it was just some guy in regular street clothes running out the locker room. And he talks to the coach, then talks to the refs, then talks to the other coach. And then everything just stops.
Wait a minute. Well, who was the guy?
The guy was the trainer, the Oklahoma City Thunder trainer.
Oh.
And he found out that Rudy Gobert had COVID.
Oh, I remember the NBA player, but I didn't know who the person was that.
Yeah. So the trainer comes running out, and then the PA announcer, on TV, they did a commercial break. Opening tip off right after the break, and then they cut it off. So I go to Twitter, and everybody's on Twitter saying, hey, they just shut down the game. What's going on? What's happening? All that good stuff. And then the PA announcer says, thanks for coming out. God bless you. Good night.
Please exit the building.
Yeah, exit slowly and safely and securely. No one's in danger. There's no harm. So, of course, now everybody's really going on to Twitter trying to figure out what's happening. And then that's when some of the Twitter sleuths said, oh, the person running was the Oklahoma City trainer. Then they were like, Chris Paul has it? Who's the person who has COVID? And then that's when they discovered it was Rudy Gobert. And see, the next day of the school, you all.
Yes. So
Was it Friday the 13th too? I know it was a full moon. I remember it was a full moon.
Don't know if it was was it a Friday? Well, okay, here's the thing. This is how I know the date, because it was a student's birthday in my class. So I remember that. But I remember them saying to pack up the students' devices and all that, and starting Monday, I guess it was a Friday. You're gonna be at home. So,
but it happened during spring break too.
Oh, it was before. It was before
Friday
spring
before
break.
spring break.
It was it was a Friday before spring break. I just remember the date because it was someone's birthday. Yes, we had spring break, but they told us to make sure that the students had their devices. So, wow.
Yeah.
It was spring break, and then I remember the week coming back after spring break. The teachers weren't at home. The teachers came back to the building because we had to get everyone's things. And I remember packing up my students' things, and they gave us these brown paper bags and just everything that was in our classroom that the students had. We had to put in that brown
Crest
paper bag.
brown paper bags.
Yes, they did.
Wow.
Yeah, they donated. Crest is a local store here for those who
local grocer.
Yes, but I mean, I had Ziploc bags full of school supplies. Everything that they brought, journals, and I was just like, oh my goodness. And then we had to, the expectation was to write the student's name on the bag, right? So I had to be extra because I was like, oh no, this is not how we're just going to end our school year like this. So I had to make some labels. I made some labels that had my student's name on it, and then I put my Bitmoji on there. And on my Bitmoji, I put, I love you.
Oh.
Because I needed my student. I'm like, how do we end like this?
Yeah.
There was literally no closure. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It was weird that week. Well, that week, you kept hearing about it overseas. And then it was like, okay, at that time, our president was like, hey, it's not an Oklahoma or an American thing. It is an overseas thing. He was calling it by a specific country. We won't get into all of that. It's them, it's that, it's them. And so some people didn't care about it. Other people were. I remember us being a little concerned because we were traveling. And I remember us as a family, we had just come back from Australia, doing a workshop and doing some educational work there.
Let's talk about that for a little bit. Because I feel like, and I'm not trying to be deep or religious. I'm not doing, trying to do that. But I do believe in Jesus. I believe in God. I feel like when we went to Australia in January,
correct,
2020.
Yes.
And
the end of January.
Yes. And I remember, because that was the longest flight ever in the history of flightdom.
Yes. That was our longest flight as a family. Absolutely, yes. It was.
And I said, there's no way I'm going to be on this flight this long and not have on a mask. I was like, I'm not getting everybody's germs. I had no idea of anything remotely close to COVID, anything. But I just did it because I'm a germaphobe, and I'm like, I'm not going to be on this plane.
Recycled air. Yeah.
And get something. And I remember when we came back and we had to go through customs, like all the people and like all those people, remember this is an international flight.
Right.
And all those people had masks. Remember that? You don't remember this? That. And I was like, oh, people do have sense. People are like me. They're germaphobes. But maybe they had masks on too because they knew of something that was brewing. But I personally had no idea. But I thought, maybe that's just a God-given intuition.
Could be. Oh, absolutely. My thought was, now looking back at it, I started to think, and of course, I overanalyze everything.
You do. That you do.
Coming back from Australia, imagine how many people are flying in and out internationally. So, of course, it wasn't just hitting America. It was hitting Mexico. It was hitting Canada. It wasn't just hitting Canada. Those international flights to New York or to LA or to Atlanta and then going all through. So, of course, it was going to spread to America. And this was when we were germaphobes because we had our wet wipes and we were wiping down everything. But everybody else on that plane was not.
Filthy, made nasty. I'm just playing.
Yeah. And so here we are in January. February comes through, and you start to hear, some rumblings of the first case is here, the first case is there. And then March comes. Once again, I'm just thinking of all the people who had taken flights through February and March, or they're coming back into the States or leaving the States. And so since it was happening worldwide, it was coming to America sooner or later. And it just got us in March. And that Thursday night, Twitter was on fire because the NBA were like, okay, we got to cancel this game because Rudy Gobert and he had to stay inside of the hotel in Oklahoma City. So then everybody in Oklahoma City, specifically at that one hotel, they were shooketh. They were like, we don't want to work here today. They were trying to call in and call out sick because now we've got COVID in Oklahoma and it comes from Rudy Gobert. I mean, he got villainized for it. Bless his heart. And he talked about it like in an interview, how he still deals with trauma and PTSD because everybody blamed him for COVID.
Wow.
But it wasn't him. It was everybody else. Anywho, it was really weird. That Friday, I remember you going to school like normal. And I remember that Friday, I was online reading everything about COVID. Everything. Where are all of the traces coming from? Which states have the biggest cases so far? And then the NBA shuts down.
Yeah.
Then the NCAA shuts down. Because this is March Madness. You're supposed to have the tournament, and none of that is happening. And it's spring break.
Yes.
So now you have students who are going to spring break retreats and vacations, and I remember all of us was like, we're not going anywhere. We stayed right in that house during spring break. And in the middle of that spring break is when you got invited to go back up to the school and start packing up things.
Was I really invited? Yeah. More like a mandate.
Did I go with you there? I can't remember.
You didn't.
Okay.
No. You're thinking of another time. But
how did it feel to know that this might have been the last time that you were going to see those students? Did it hit you then while you were packing? Like, this is the last time I'm going to see my students when they come and get these bags.
No, it did not hit me until the students or, the parents came up and actually started picking up the bags. So it was more like, it was the same kind of process that we had for dismissal, with the car tags and, you could see.
So they didn't even come inside the school to get it?
No.
No? You had to like carry their stuff out to the car tag, bus area, car area.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. And then sometimes, since we worked as a team, sometimes like, because we were trying to get everything out, we tried to get to all of our students, but sometimes we had to give bags to, other classes of students. So I literally didn't get to see everybody that's in my class, and then there were some people who didn't come pick up anything. So I didn't see anyone, but then to come to work the next day and then you just see all these bags lined up. It was just like, I think that's when it hit me like, I'm not going to see these babies for the rest of the school year.
Yeah.
And then that's when we were first doing Zoom calls and all that. But of course, it's nothing like seeing your students in person.
Yeah.
So, and that was hit or miss because they weren't required to get on. All this was new.
Yeah.
So it was just, I don't know. It was almost an eerie feeling.
Spring break did not feel like spring break.
That's why I say I will never forget that date.
Yeah. I remember you trying to figure out technology that you and probably millions of other teachers were not using. Mm-hmm. You're like, okay, this Zoom. How does Zoom work?
Right.
Let's look into this Zoom thing. Okay. All right. What happens if, I hear an echo. Oh, we need to deaden sound. We got to get a better camera. We need a camera. This webcam is not good enough. Microphone. Okay. I remember you figuring all of that out. Mm-hmm. And then even doing test runs where you were in one room, the kids were in another room, I was in a room, and we're all in this Zoom trying to figure out the best way that you could teach with the Zoom. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. It was, yeah. That was a very sad time. Mm-hmm. Now that I'm just really thinking back on it, it was very sad.
Yeah.
And some of the questions that came from it, I'll never forget when the little baby in my class said, she said, "Is this the last time I'm going to see you?" And I'm like, "No, baby, this is not the last time. It's, yeah."
Yeah.
Or if I fast forward to the next school year of when we came back after COVID, mm-hmm. when we had to shut down again, and the trauma of those babies saying, "Is this the last day we're coming to school?"
Yeah.
Because
and
that's
for
what they
our
remember.
Listeners and our watchers, our viewers here, Oklahoma, they did things a little different by districts. Share with them how you all did COVID school for the rest of that 2020.
For the rest of that 2020, it was just virtual classes. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, how normal can you make it?
Right.
Really?
And it wasn't like an actual class for her school district or for her class. They were not in school from 8 a.m. till 3 p.m. at night.
No, it was, hey, come, let's meet and talk to Miss Doughty for a little bit. And we would get off. So it might have been like 30 minutes now. Yeah. Remember, these are second graders. So
yeah. And there are some other districts where they did transition full time, stay on this line, stay on this Zoom call or this Google Hangouts all day. This particular district did not do that. I thought that was the dopest thing ever.
Yeah.
Where they were like, we are all going through this trauma. A lot of the parents, a lot of the grandparents, guardians have it. A lot of the students have it. I mean, everyone is getting this. Let's have voluntary class. I even remember the time sneaking in and seeing you just reading a picture book.
Oh, yeah.
Just something just to try to do some type of normal for them.
Yeah.
Or the other time sliding in and seeing your kids with their baby brothers and baby sisters while you're reading. It was such a weird.
Yeah.
Weird
And
time.
it was more of check-in, just emotional check-ins. How are you doing?
Yeah.
And just letting them talk. Or, we would try to do something fun like show and tell or go find this shape or, something like that. So, I don't know. To still try to incorporate some fun and learning at the same time with this unique situation. I remember, I just thought about this. One time I was on the call and it said, Miss Daughty, one of my students said, Miss Daughty, what are you doing for the rest of the day? I said, well, guys, I'm getting ready to go clean out my garage. And they were like, oh my goodness, you have a garage? Can I come help you? Oh, that's so sweet, but no.
It's super note.
Yeah, it was just, you literally had to find things to do.
Like you as in class or you as in?
Me as in me.
Oh, okay.
Like, I'm like, oh, let me go clean my baseboards today. You're finding stuff to do. I'm not used to being at home like that.
You're out of your routine.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I remember, of course, from my end, it went from in-person workshops and conferences to in the split of a second, we got to do something else. And so I remember going to Walmart late at night because by that time, this was before they shut down all the Walmarts at a specific time. I knew there would be less people there, and getting lamps and getting lights and anything that I could get, rigging stuff, making like a light fixture just so I could do a virtual workshop instead of an in-person workshop. And yeah, it was very challenging.
Yeah.
My heart really broke during those COVID times, listening to a student. And of course, we're always in touch with families and we're always here to help families. You all know us. We're the Daughtys. That's what we do. We help in any capacity whatsoever. One student came and said, Mr. Doughty, I don't know what to do. I'm overwhelmed. I've got all this work that we're supposed to turn in because, we're virtual at this time. And like, I live with my grandparents and they both got COVID. So what I do, Mr. Doughty? Like, I'm scared my grandparents are going to die. Because at that time, it was really spiking and peaking.
Yeah.
And so this high school kid, scared to death, because he and his siblings are looking at grandma and grandpa, and they're struggling with COVID. And he's like, I can't turn in this work because I don't want to do this work because I'm in here watching my grandpa and my grandma. And at the same time, I'm still trying to take care of my baby brothers and sisters and making sure that they're online and going to school. And yeah, it was a lot.
It was a lot. And as you mentioned that, I thought about how much the pandemic exposed as far as the disparities in technology and just resources.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Or just that evil word of equity that people are scared to talk about, and how the pandemic kind of showed itself that, like, okay, you can say we're equitable, but now that everything's been stripped away, how have you served your students in your communities, your parents, your families? And I appreciate so many of our districts nationwide who did address that really quickly.
Yes.
and went to those board meetings and said, we need X amount of dollars and we need to get this bond going ASAPly so we can get students Chromebooks or iPads or technology or routers or internet access, or we need to connect with these companies, these internet companies, to get inexpensive Wi-Fi so they can stay connected. Like, I can appreciate we had so many district people doing that.
Agreed.
Yeah. What I do love about the COVID season was how, at least for 2020, the schools went back to just teaching. I loved that. They were like, oh, we don't need standardized testing this year.
Yes.
And then all of the teachers was like, hooray! And they ripped up their papers and they threw them in the air.
Can't you?
Yeah, and they started dancing and singing. And they were just teaching, just flat out teaching. I remember stopping through one class. A friend said, hey, swing through. So they gave me their Zoom, and I swung through. And they were just having a conversation. What have you been up to? And then the students were just talking. Like, that was just as much teaching as trying to figure out chapter 9 inside of whatever science book. I thought that was really cool. Yeah.
So let's talk about how COVID affected you. I know you touched on it a little bit, but let's talk about how COVID affected you and the work that you do. So for the viewers and the listeners who aren't familiar with your work, can you describe that for them?
Yeah. I get the opportunity to speak at your edu conferences and do workshops and breakouts and keynotes. In addition to, I partner with several organizations and am like a trainer of certain pedagogical skills.
Come on, pedagogical.
And everything was going great. 2020 was supposed to be the year.
Yes.
It was supposed to be the breakout year. We've learned a lot doing this independently. You learn that you have to grow your money and grow your networks. And so in 2020, January was that big leap. We were starting off in Australia. And then we're going to come back from Australia. And
what a way to start the year.
Yeah. We had things lined up. February all the way to and through August. I was going to actually be on a speaking tour. I had 8 keynotes that I was going to do, in addition to the work that I do with PBL Works and with Adaptive X. So it was going to be phenomenal. Yes, all of the hard work paying off, all of the connections, the talking, the conversations, the pro bono work, all of that was going to come to fruition during that summer.
Pro bono work?
I did. Well, I still do.
I'm just playing.
Yeah, I do pro bono work, you all.
Now, don't all you go asking for pro bono work. The man got to feed his family,
Yeah. And I remember in that March, I was thinking to myself, this may not look good. This may not look good. Then on top of that, that was when I launched the movie.
Sure was.
For those who don't know, I did a screenplay. It was a great movie. We were going to fund it ourselves independently. And I remember in March setting up everything, getting all of the OKs and the permits and scout locations. And then April hits and I'm like, it's not as bad as it looks. So we're going to do this. We'll practice in Zoom, and then we'll get all of the actors and the cast and production crew together, and we'll film during the summer when I come back from these trips. And these trips are going to help fund that movie. And then everything shut down. Everything. And then, of course, the schools are like, yeah, sorry, Andre, we're going to have to postpone and cancel. And we'll look about it in the future. Maybe in 21, we can swing back around. And so I went from having 8 keynote in-person workshops and keynotes and gigs to 0. And that broke my heart.
Yes.
Yeah, broke my heart.
Yeah. Yes. When the bread and butter is.
Yeah.
has molded and melted.
And even then, like you can, and this is an encouraging word, perhaps, even in your seasons of planning, because I overplan everything.
Yes.
And you plan it right and you do everything right and you're expecting, you plant good seed in the ground. And you're like, okay, this is about to be a phenomenal harvest. Sometimes that harvest don't harvest. And what do you do about it? And so for 2020, at least, that harvest did not harvest. Not at all. I'm very grateful to the partnerships that I have with PBL Works, Adaptive X, and some other opportunities that came up to help. But it was nowhere close to that dream of 2020. In the end, the movie, we had to stop production. We quit having production meetings. We quit practicing our lines. And I just finally had to tell all of them, hey, I'm sorry, you all, but it's getting worse. That we can't do it. Not on the budget that we have. There's just really no way to keep everyone safe. We had actors coming in from Texas and Arkansas and Kansas City. And it was like, I just can't. I'm sorry. So, yeah.
Yeah. It kind of took you back there, huh?
It did.
You okay?
I'll be okay.
Yeah.
22 is a little better.
It's a lot better.
Yeah. My heart still goes out to all of the parents, the friends, the communities. Like, we're almost up to 1 million people who have died from COVID.
Wow.
And even when it went from 100,000 to 200,000, I mean, that just breaks your heart. And then from 400,000, 500,000, or the time that I got COVID and I couldn't smell. And even now, I'm still not back to 100% of smelling. I think about all of those families and friends and people who still have chest issues and breathing issues from it, or the ones who just simply lost their loved ones.
Yeah.
It's changed everything from personally to professionally in our educational field as well. On a better note, what is something that you are happy that has continued in education since COVID? What are some of the changes that you've seen and you're like, oh, we need to keep that? Oh, yeah, we definitely need to keep that part in education moving forward for forever.
Well, what I wish would have remained, but it's not. Like you said, the year that they eliminated the state test, I was like, I felt the burden lifted, even though I was not in a testing grade, but to feel that from my peers, yeah.
Okay.
I wish then let's just not anymore. I mean, come on.
Something that I love is everybody has their own stuff now. Those are your crayons.
Ooh,
those are your pencils. Yeah, I get the sharing.
Let me just say from my perspective, because everybody doesn't feel the way that I do. And I am a germaphobe, but it was something about when you're in class and you're like, hey guys, reach into the community bucket and get what you need. Oh, you need a pencil? Just get it. I miss that.
No, I still love the community bucket. But what I've realized from COVID, you don't have to share everything.
No, you don't.
If those are your crayons, you have a right not to say, you have a right to say, I don't want to share my black crayon with you.
That's true.
And for those...
And nobody really asked either.
Yeah,
now that I think about it, even the next year after we went back, those kids, they got in that routine of it's okay to say no, and they didn't ask really.
Yeah.
You know, could they borrow something from
He
him?
won't share his black crayon with me.
Yeah.
Like, since COVID, there are things that I would rather just keep. Now, as teacher, of course, the community bucket is still there. Plenty of pencils in there, plenty of pencil sharpeners, plenty of .5 lead, plenty of whatever it may be. Tissues, wet wipes, all of that. But if you have your own stuff and you want to keep your own stuff, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Because, of course, there are some students that we all have in class who may not have. And so you provide for them and you make sure it's okay.
Oh, yes, yes.
But there are some students who I don't want to share this right now. I'm okay with that.
I am too. I'm going to tell you, I thought about something that I really liked. Now, I was an early childhood teacher. I actually loved Seesaw. Is this random? Is this random or what?
Come on.
I love the idea of students using their technology, but it was age appropriate. You know, they created things and you got to listen to them read when you couldn't be right there with them.
Yeah.
And then they hurt themselves and they got the instant feedback. I love that. I wish that would never go away, especially for early childhood teachers.
Here's another one that I love, and I hope that it continues. Teachers weren't depending on the custodial staff to clean the room.
Right. That is so true.
The custodial staff still did the work, still did their job. They still were great and excellent. But the teachers were like, kids, wet wipe, scrub, here's the spray, spray. Everything was getting wiped down almost every hour.
Yes.
Even at Walmart and Target, everybody was spraying up a place.
Yes. Yes. I remember we did I did this game more during COVID. The dirtiest wipe game.
Ooh.
Oh,
He's tricking these kids.
Oh, it's so great. So this is how it works.
Yeah, okay.
So I'd set the timer and let's say for 3 minutes. And I give each of the students a disinfecting wipe. And I'd say, your first job is to clean your table and clean your chair. But after that's finished, we want to see who has the dirtiest wipe by the time the timer goes off. Let me tell you something. Those kids were finding every single crevice and crack to clean under. They were under the table, under the chair. I mean, they were everywhere. And even while the timer's going, they're like, Miss Doughty, look how dirty this is. Look at this. It's black. It's black.
Yeah. When a white disinfectant cloth turns black as our shirts.
Yes.
Yes. That is something.
And for them to find the winner, oh my goodness. And then I would always say, oh my goodness, I don't know who has the dirtiest wipe. I guess we'll have to play again.
Call the time.
Yes. Or mystery trash. Have you ever played mystery trash with your students?
Mystery trash.
Okay. Play mystery trash with your students, people. So we would do a project or something, and let's say we had a craftivity for the day, and they had to cut something. So with those little bodies and they're cutting, it's stuff all over the floor. They would try to put stuff in the trash, but it just wouldn't make it all the time, right? So after cleanup time, I'd still see a few pieces of trash on the floor, and I'd say, okay, we're gonna do mystery trash. And this is how it goes. You eyeball a piece of trash and you put it in your head and you say, okay, I found that mystery piece of trash. Now whoever picks up my mystery piece of trash will get blah 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 blah. In my case, I used to give out kindness coins, and you had to collect kindness coins. So anyway, I'd set the timer And I'd say go. And by the time the timer was over, now I really didn't pick up.
You didn't pick a specific thing?
I said, oh, okay, there's trash on the floor. They don't know. It's in my head. And by the time the timer was over, I mean, the floor was just clean.
How long was the timer?
Oh, I'd do it for 1 or 2 minutes. It depended on how much trash was on the floor. And so I told them they couldn't ask me while the timer was going off if they got the piece of mystery trash. I'd say, I'm not telling you. The timer is still going. So they have like
12 and 13 pieces of trash in their hand.
Oh, yeah. So
now, would they put the mystery trash in the trash can, or did they keep it until the end?
Some of them kept it, some of them put it in the trash can. I just told them I was looking.
Oh, that's genius. Absolutely genius.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. I wish that our nation, at least, our companies, kept that clean part. Where I remember after Target going through the self-checkout line, how they would spray and wipe it off. Down.
Yes.
They also had another worker always wiping down the carts.
Now, shout out to Target, because I was just in there the other day. They still have those people wiping down those carts. And they have the disinfecting wipes and the spray.
I love
They have masks and gloves.
That is a
right
great
when you come in the store.
Walmart, too. They still have I loved how everybody had germ juice. And if you felt that you needed some, just bam, there you go. I'm glad that we're keeping that. I personally am keeping masks. I don't think I'll ever go back to a non-mask situation.
Some of the best educators in the world are people you've never heard of. They may not be on TV or get the National Teacher of the Year awards, but we want to give those teachers their flowers today. We know the sacrifice and the heavy lifting these educators go through daily. With that said, we present Sprout Outs.
All right, Danielle, Sprout Out time. Who are we sprouting out today?
Today's Sprout Out goes to every single educator in the world. Thank you for, here was the buzzword, pivoting, shifting and changing your practice on a dime, and still making it fun for students, still holding students accountable for their learning and their social, emotional well-being. Thank you. I appreciate you. I applaud you.
Yeah. We as parents appreciate you all. Sometimes we may not show it overall, but we really, truly appreciate you. Yeah.
Yes.
That's a really good Sprout Out.
Thank you. Here at See What Had Happened, we believe when one wins, we all win. Listen, you can keep helping us win by following us on all social media platforms. Like, share, subscribe, do it all to help make our podcast more visible and for us to get more subscribers. Help us win, people. We thank you for joining us today. And don't forget to join us on the next episode of See What Had Happened. Bye.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. You can find out more at teachbetter.com/podcast.